Hello, Chris. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Ash. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Steph, you're more than welcome on Founders Podcast. I was looking into your profile and I was so looking forward for this conversation. I was like, okay, finally, Chris is here. Great stuff.
Shucks.
So,
Thanks.
Chris, before we start then, do you have a favorite quote, something that inspires you, motivates you, you would like to share with our audience?
I think it's as much as it's a quote, it's actually an insight, which is um, to do well and to do good. I mean, I think you can do well and do good. I think many people think that it's one or the other, and I don't think that's true. And I've done that a number of times in my career, and I'd leave that with the audience that you can do well and do good, and that's a worthwhile goal.
Got it. Got it. Um, so, Chris, I want to do something different today. Um, Before we start, then, I have this hypothetical situation for you. Imagine you are in a room of full of ambitious founders, early stage builders, right? Um, they're waiting there. Say some of them are sitting on the front row, some of them are standing in the back. They have lots of drinks, pizzas available there. Imagine this the startup
I've been in
rising.
these environments before,
Yeah,
Ash.
yeah.
I was one of those
And
people in the audience once, so yeah, I get it.
there you go, there you go. And then you
Yeah.
walk in. The whole spotlight is on you. You walking inside, getting on the stage. You have the mic, and every single person is looking at you. You pause.
Oh, the pressure.
What would you, yeah, what would you tell them so that they can stick with us for the rest of the hour?
Well, I think that I'd tell them one thing, and that is, um, uh, you can 5x or 10x your company in a year. It's
Mm,
absolutely doable, and it really comes down to understanding the problem, really understanding the problem you're trying to solve, and then messaging around that problem. Um, I think so many of us have a scarcity mindset that keeps us from our goal. And and if you can find that abundance, that idea that the real problem to solve, um, the first principle problem, um, it's really quite limitless. And plenty of people tell you it can't be done. Um, but if you have that sort of in the back of your head as you're building, as you're dealing with those obstacles that you have to overcome, it really is quite the journey and the pain um, will show dividends, and it doesn't have to be forever.
mm, got it, got it. So, should we move to the next step then? Would you be able to share with our audience something what you have recognized early in this? Tell us what is Kayana, what does the product do, who is it for, and what's the main problem you're helping to solve here?
Yeah. So Kayana actually is a name that's a mashup of two words, which is Kayana, which is a Tagalog mashup of can do now.
Mm,
And the insight around the business was that many people have sort of attacked this problem as a staffing company and have thought about as a staffing company. When you name your company, you want the name to sort of resonate with the sort of ideal consumer profile or customer profile. Um, Many people name staffing companies around the benefits to the client.
mm,
But we realized that there was actually a bigger problem. And that is that there was the talent was being commoditized in third world countries. And so when we named the company Kayana, we named it to the benefit of the talent because we knew if we had the talent, the client problems and the pain points for the client would take care of themselves. The question became, what is the problem we're trying to solve? How do we solve it and where do we start? And the name of the company, Kayana, is a talent facing brand that provides an attitude of you can do it now. You can do it now at Kayana. And that's where the name of the company came from. But the discovery that I just sort of gave you, going from a staffing company to a talent agency was not overnight. because we didn't I, at least personally as a founder, I didn't really understand the problem because the problem I was trying to solve was a problem that I experienced in finding offshore talent. And it was the experience was never good. I didn't like the experience. The results were excellent. My first hire was a material scientist and an engineer that became my executive assistant for less than $15 an hour, which is on its surface ridiculous. Um, and I could have stopped there as a company. We could have stopped there and said, "Oh yeah, let's just solve that problem." And a lot of companies have. But what we realized the bigger problem was is that the talent was being commoditized, and that insight and that business has been the beginning of this journey for us. And it's, um, people like to focus on the KPIs. Everyone wants to talk about the multiples, but just showing up and trying to solve that problem every day drives the results. And so,
So let's take a step back then. Take us
yeah,
paint the picture. Take us back
yeah,
to the place where you were doing something else before
yeah.
Kayana. Okay, what
Well,
were you doing that time? What was the challenges you were facing, and what was the trigger which says, "Oh, Chris, no, you have to stop doing everything. You have to do Kayana."
yeah. Well, it really was this sort of, it was the business happened by mistake.
Mm,
And I I responded to an in-mail on LinkedIn, which I honestly have never done. And I think one of the thoughts for everyone here is that there's probably one of every 30 in-mails that you should probably respond to, if only to see what else someone else is working on. I think there are ideas in in-mails. Most of it's throwable, throwaway, but
yeah.
some of it's good. And to ignore that stream entirely is foolish. I that was one lesson learned. But the lesson that was taught to me in that email, which I couldn't escape, which is if you don't have an assistant, you are the assistant. It got me to thinking about how I spend my time and how efficient I really am. And not only where I spend my time, but where I spend my energy. And and that sort of opened a door for me to start thinking about getting help and building a team. And at the time I was dealing with scarcity. As an entrepreneur, I was on my own. I was kind of in the middle of I won't call it a talent desert, but I'm in the middle of the Midwest in Milwaukee, and there's just not a lot of capability out here. And so I wanted to look somewhere else. I felt like I had to look somewhere. And so that got me to going on my own search to solve my own problem around scarcity and time management and efficiency. And what I saw in this person was a feeling of abundance. I couldn't believe how talented she was and how little it costs. And I thought to myself, gosh, if I only had this 10 years ago, I would have built all the other companies differently. And that realization, after I realized that, I kind of sold off a business I was working on to a family office. I handed one off to one of the operators. I thought, I'm going to go build this capability for someone else. And
Mm,
I think there's a lot of people that have approached the problem similarly. Um, Many times those people come from other countries that already know and understand the sort of vastness of talent and resources that are out there, and sort of use their relationships here in the United States to make that happen. I think where a lot of these solutions fall down, though, and where I got very excited is understanding the talent problem. And so I learned it was quite a painful lesson, but I learned that I was chasing the wrong problem. I mean, I thought I was solving the client's pain, my pain really, but the real monster sat right sort of underneath it, which is that talent was being siphoned off, commoditized, and outsourced to the lowest bidder in third world and in third world BPOs and talent agencies. Um, so the more clients I attracted, the more I felt myself bleeding out, um, and really not representing the people and solving the right problem. I mean, the tipping part really hit hard, and the fear that I was building an empire that was not in service to the people who needed it the most was really kind of this sort of epiphany that I had.
Right, right. And I was about to ask you this same thing, right? Like when you had Spiffany, did you looked into the market? Were there other products or services? What was going on at that time, and what did you see
Yeah.
from your research that encouraged you to move ahead
Yeah.
with this idea?
Well, I mean, as I'd mentioned, I'd sort of sampled the product and, um, and I didn't like the experience. But the result was fantastic. So the questions I started asking myself was, why is this? How can we make this better? So I pretended to be a client of somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 services. I mean, I reached out to everyone that would talk to me. And as you can imagine, I'd get a response, Mr. Nolte, I'm very interested in helping you, blah, 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 blah. And it felt very much the same.
Mm,
And so I kept on reinforcing this idea that no one's doing this. No one's thinking about this. And I went searching even deeper and even at more of an enterprise level, because in a way I wanted to build a company that that I could be the biggest client of as a private equity investor and operator. The idea of a limitless or abundance of high quality talent at an attractive price. I mean, you could do a lot with that idea. What I did, but how scalable is it? And when you really sort of peel back the onion, um, this is not a new idea. I mean, outsourcing has been around for decades. Um, and it all started with what they call BPOs, business process outsourcing. And the word outsourcing is actually not a word that resonates with me anymore because large corporations, Fortune 500 companies, they don't outsource anymore. What they
mhm,
do is they set up these things called global centers of capability, GCCs, and they start hiring. And they has to hire 1,000, 10,000 people. I mean, JP Morgan Chase in India has 45,000 employees. I mean, I don't know how big the banking system is in India, but I think most of those people are in service to corporate clients and or business clients in the US and in the sort of developed world. And
mhm.
so, you know, and if I stopped at JP Morgan, I'd do a disservice. Microsoft, Fiserv, any corporation has already built capability offshore, and it isn't low level call center talent. It's some of the most talented people. In fact, McKinsey. Think about McKinsey, one of the best management strategy or management consulting firms in the world.
Yeah.
The smartest people in that organization aren't in the United States. And yet those are the people that are sort of front ending the sales, the client experience. It's the people in India that they send their work to at night. And so these are not new ideas, but small middle market.
Mm,
And maybe there's still a bit of xenophobia in the world or just an ignorance, but they don't have access to it because they can't hire 1,000 people. They can't hire 100. They need 10. And so how do you scale that? How do you make that work? And so, um, how the real insight is solving the talent problem, but then bringing it to a scale that's attractive to small middle market that desperately need it, that are experiencing every day scarcity.
got it. Got it. Would you be able to? So I want to go to a use case with you, a success story with one of your customer. But before we go into that, would you be able to share with our audience? Can you give us a sense of the size of the business? What are you in terms of revenue, number of customers, size of team, etc.?
Yeah, so it's a multi-million-dollar business, and it's growing about 15% a month, and I think we'll probably triple that, and I think that's actually seasonal. That's a seasonal growth rate. I think in the first half of 2026, I think we'll grow at much faster rates
Mm,
because we're really focused on the right problem. And the solution really doesn't exist for small middle market private equity portfolio companies. And so it's very much a land and expand. They hire one, they hire five, they hire 10. And then you sort of penetrate all the underlying portfolio companies simultaneously. More likely than not, we'll probably grow 3 or 4x next year
mm,
um, because of that. So, but but it's not just about the clients and the people, it's the impact, right? And it's the families and the companies that you touch. Um, you know, when you're at hundreds and hundreds of people, um, the impact, especially when you're delivering on compensation and opportunity multiplies within the family, right? So, I mean, the good we're doing, I think, is part of the equation too, right? I think it's actually a big part of it. Um, and the client feels that, the talent feels that, and you start wondering, like, who who you're serving. You're really serving, both sides, right? It's not just the talent; it is the client. It's just the intentionality of focusing on the talent that drives the client experience.
Indeed, indeed. Okay, then, Chris. So let's move to the next part, which is, could you take our listeners to one of your success stories with one of your clients so that they understand, like, who is your ideal customer persona? How
Yeah,
does your top of the funnel looks like? Where they get into the funnel?
yeah,
How you onboard them once they decide to,
yeah.
take your services, and then what is the path look like towards the success?
Yeah. So, um, I think this is an educational process for many people. They simply don't know what's possible, right? And so, much like you sample product in Costco, I mean, I ran a retailer at one point. And sampling is really important to people trying to understand. And the good news is in this business, people don't have to make a big commitment. The contracts we sign are month to month contracts, and the bets we make are once you see it, you can't unsee it, and you never want to go back. So um, it's very much a land and expand type execution. Now, let me tell you a story about one of the largest remanufacturers of transmissions in the United States. This is a company of almost 1,000 employees, and I happen to have a personal relationship with the CEO of that company, and they were telling me about the $100,000 executive assistant that they hired and how they were frustrated by this person and how the person wasn't as really productive and really was more of a luxury than a need because of the expense. Um, I happened to days earlier meet somebody that was working for much less money. It's almost embarrassing to mention. I can't even mention it. Um, but she was working for one of the more successful social influencer venture capitalists in the United States and being abused at that. And so I said to her, I said, look, leave, take a month off. We're going to find you a good opportunity. And we placed this person who had been working incredibly hard, working 12 hours a day, getting paid for 8, right? At what is an embarrassingly low rate. And we brought her in and we paid her twice as much. And she worked a standard 8-hour day to people that were so appreciative of her skill and capability. And in that, they saw now the possibility of the talent and cost that was available to them. And we used her to wrap what we call a pod. And we continue to bring in and onboard people into that relationship and spread that throughout the company, not just at the executive support level and chief of staff level, but in Power BI analytics, project management offices, financial accounting and controls, where these people ended up supporting the already expensive talent that this company had, but effectively allowing them to elevate to their highest and best use and then build capacity underneath it. And so, you know, you're doing a lot of different things for these companies. And so that relationship doubled in the matter of 7 months. And I think it's going to double again in the next 12 months. And that's just one company. And now they tell a friend, because these are not, what we're doing is not a competing idea in the sense that, um, you know, everyone's going to end up doing this. bottom line is. As work and is redefined and where and how work gets done because of AI, workflow automation, and offshore talent, everyone's gonna have to play along and go sort of jump in with 2 feet. The question is, small middle market is gonna have the biggest leap, but that's an example of a company that, um, is thrilled with the service and the talent, the embedded talent that we've brought to bear for them that they just didn't know was possible.
Mm, interesting. And it is it is way more than common you will see in real world that talented people has been working for companies who are taking their advantage for so long without even understanding their real worth, instead of going somewhere where their real worth could be you know recognizable, and they're
Right,
given incentives for that, compared to the people who are just vocal. They're just risk taker. They're not even like the top talented or top class talent in the industry, but they're just good enough
there, yeah,
to take the risk, go ahead and say to their boss, "Oh, I'm not going to work for you if you don't, I don't know, raise
right,
my package, annual income, or
yeah.
something like that."
Well, and I think that's a luxury of a tight labor market. You know, you see that on LinkedIn today where you have or TikTok or Instagram where people show those firing, those firing, moments. You know, like, "You're firing me, I'm set, or I'm quitting." And, that's a luxury that is not afforded in most places in the world. And that's how people get commoditized, right? If you are a Silicon Valley engineer and you know you can go across the street and make 10% more, what's the risk?
Mm,
There is no risk. That is, as much as we'd like to call that courage, it really isn't, right? Because there's no downside in it. But if you're living 8,000 miles away and your family needs your paycheck, let me
that
see
is the
you go
risk.
do let me see
Yeah.
you go do that.
Mm,
Because I don't think it's as easy. And that's why a company like ours matters because they don't have to. We advocate for them. And in advocating and creating sort of this love triangle between the talent and the client in our service, um, you don't have to do that work. In fact, I got to tell you, I wish Kayana existed for people like me 30 years ago. Because there's probably things I could have done or sort of thought about or opportunities that I foregone because I didn't know they existed or I didn't know what to say, right? Now, the world's a bit different place, you know, where people are sort of advocating that for themselves in a way, but no one likes to do that. And it affects your relationship to the organization that you're working for. And you know, we like to believe that HR handles these things, the internal HR team, but really they're not. You know, they know what's going on. They know who they work for. They work for the
mm,
company. They don't work for the person. And so it's kind of messy, right? And I think that's the letdown in corporate America today is that um, people feel alone. And I think this is going to actually increase as the labor markets and how work gets done um, changes. You know, there's going to be a lot more people feeling um, commoditized or cast aside.
mm.
And it's not gonna always be easy to walk across the street and get 10%.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So Chris, I'm eager to learn more about you as a person, right? Can you take us back to your roots and share with our listeners about your, I don't know, upbringing, your childhood? How did your early stage experiences shape your journey and eventually led you to become a visionary entrepreneur you are today? And
Sure,
also, were there any key influences from your family or surrounding? You know, we all have read about this Rich Dad Poor Dad book from
sure.
Robert Kawasaki, right?
Yeah.
Was there a rich dad? Was there a poor dad? Was there anybody in your family, like who influenced you, your
Sure.
surroundings? And
Yeah.
yeah, we would love to hear more about the foundation that set you
Y
into this path.
Absolutely. Well, I think the the person that had the most influence on me is my father.
Mm.
Um, but, you know, if you looked at his resume, you wouldn't know the person because, I found this out when I was 40 years old. He kind of took me aside and he said, Chris, I want to tell you something. I dropped out of high school 3 days before graduation, right? Which kind of blew my mind that I was finding out about this so late in life. But he said, I just didn't want to share it with you because it was not something I was proud of and I didn't want you to get the wrong idea. But this is a guy who grew up in the Bronx, New York. He was 6'8", and as he described it to me, he never lost a fight.
Mm.
And he tried a lot of different businesses as a young person without a high school degree, and ultimately ended up getting into the business of plumbing. And within a short period of time in a small company, he distinguished himself as a very hardworking person. I think my grandfather had 3 jobs. Um, but he worked really hard. And while he wasn't the right size for a plumber, I mean, it's useful when you can kind of work up, but there's a lot of tight spaces, and as being 6'8" probably wasn't the perfect setup. But he did twice as many jobs as the next plumber.
Mm.
And the person that owned the company realized this and ultimately allowed him to to run the business because this gentleman wasn't a plumber himself.
Mm.
And so at the end of sort of at the end of the day, he was running the largest emergency plumbing company in New York City. But what made him unique, um, and it wasn't because he took my advice, because I I had thoughts for him that he was very stubborn about and didn't want to adopt, but
Mm.
but he did things differently. And an example of that would be as a guy who didn't. He was one of the earliest momentum investors that I knew of, and he was always looking for an angle. I mean, here's a guy who who didn't even graduate from high school, made money as a plumber, but was reading 3 newspapers a day and was basically in momentum investing back in the 70s. And, as you know, that's a tried and true and bona fide strategy today. But in the 70s, it didn't really exist. And so he would basically trade in and out of positions based on the day of the month. He would trade in and out of positions depending on the day of the week. Because he knew how mutual fund flows operated. How did he figure this out? Did he work on Wall Street? Absolutely not. But he saw it in the data.
Mm.
And so one of the things that he would do is he'd get these I remember him every weekend. He'd have the newspaper in front of him and he'd see sort of directionally, both on a 7-day, 30-day, and 6-month perspective on how funds and sectors were moving. And he'd be trading on that, investing in it. My father passed away in 2021, right after COVID. One of the positions he put on in 2014, which we still own, is now a massive position in semiconductors. He saw the momentum in semiconductors in the early 2013, and he put a fairly large position on. And I mean, I think it's 20, 30x at this point. But this is a guy who knew nothing about technology but understood momentum and in momentum investing. I wanted to be an investor just like he was. And when I graduated college and I moved to New York City, um, I my girlfriend got a job in New York. I went to school in Virginia, and I'd been given offers in DC, but I had to come to New York and figure it out all anew. Um, and that really started my professional journey to try to find my way into investing. Um, Now, it started in database, being a database programmer. I started programming when I was 6. I never was formally trained as a programmer, but it was my first job was as a programmer. Then became a systems analyst for an M&A shop that bought banks, and then I parlayed that into business school. Um, my first job was in effectively real estate, private equity real estate, because I saw it as a way to learn an asset class that for in working for someone else that I can then ultimately work for myself. I mean, I'm always looking for I'm a value investor at heart. And in the family office that I ran for about 14 years, we're always looking for those angles, those ways to get in small and grow it through compounding large over time. So I don't know if that sort of puts it all together for you, but you know, I don't exactly come from sort of a family of credential or pedigree, um, but we like to think differently and be right. And investing in ideas where there's an asymmetry in risk reward. And I think that's kind of the underpinnings of my entrepreneurship is that I saw this in the talent world. I couldn't believe how great the talent was overseas and what it costs. And that's an investment worth making, both with time and money. Still with me?
Sorry, I was just saying that thank you so much for sharing your story.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next part of our episode, which is a quick fire round. I've got 6 quick fire question for you.
All right.
At
Let's
any
do it.
stage, if you don't want to answer that question, any question, just give me a
Sure.
skip and then we can move to the next one. How's that?
Sure. Let's do it. It's great.
Great.
Let's do it.
What are the top 3 strategies to get talented resources in your business in 2026?
Be on the town side of the table, TikTok, and and focusing on finding the right opportunities. Think as if the talent was a family member. Would you put them in that situation? I think those things are really, really important by sort of showing that intentionality by finding markets. TikTok is a very powerful tool. I mean, if there's anything that people should be doing is using TikTok. Um, it's still the Wild West. It's not well managed. The algorithms, you could lose your brand overnight. I mean, I got shut down on TikTok twice now.
Wow.
Um, yeah, I got banned twice.
Is
And
it you're
and
you're losing a lot of money on the ads or?
no, no, no. I just says doing TikTok lives. I'm
Oh,
doing
okay.
TikTok lives. And so by doing TikTok lives, the algorithm is very odd. It doesn't understand. It doesn't, I think it randomly bans people. And a lot of people, I mean, I had tens of thousands of followers. I mean, the day before I got canceled by TikTok, I added 800 people in 2 hours. I mean, yeah, it's intense. Like every time I would do a TikTok live, I would be the top performing TikTok live at that time. And if you have a good message, TikTok live is an amazing way to be discovered because the algorithm works. The governance doesn't. And so you just
Mm,
have to be careful.
mm,
So that would be the first, that would be actually trick number 1, 2, and 3, probably. That TikTok is a remarkable platform.
got it. What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
Wow, that's a tough one. I think there's so many things worth reading. Um, uh, what I've been focusing my reading on recently is behavioral psychology because I find it super interesting. Um, but you know, it really depends. I'm embarrassed to say I don't know what to say other than there's a book. Uh, there's a book that is close to my heart. It's called Virtual Freedom,
Mm,
and it's sort of a somewhat dated book now, uh, and it's just slightly later than the 4 hour work week. I want sometimes people hear a message in books that seems too good to be true. Even today, I talk to people about what I do and how I operate and what's possible for them, and they have a sense of disbelief. Um, some of these some of these ideas are actually very actionable, and you have to kind of your see past your blind spots, or like kind of look around the corner to see them. I think these types of books, these sort of bigger idea books, I think could be one of those things. That's what I would look at. Those are the types of books I would look at.
Got it. What one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful founder?
Failing fast. I think a lot of people, well, there's two attributes. One is failing fast, and then two, not be overly protective of your idea. Um, One of my first business enterprises was in the late 90s. And what I was effectively creating at the time was a digital rights platform akin to YouTube, which was started 5 years later. And the reason why I failed, I think, is not because it was because one, I didn't know what I was doing. Let's start there. But two, I was afraid to share it. I was a bit like Gollum in Lord of the Rings, and I was protecting my precious when really what I needed to do was share it. I needed to share the idea. If you don't share your idea and you don't um, recognize that the world is not about ideas, but execution, um, you're not going to bring in enough of people to get it off the ground. And so if you protect it, you're going to actually kill it faster than if you shared it. That's why one of the reasons why venture capitalists don't sign NDAs, you know,
Mm,
and any startup founder who tries to get one is crazy. I
yeah.
mean, they've already lost. They're playing like it's their only good idea that they'll ever have.
Mm,
Never operate that way. Never operate like this idea is the best idea you ever have. There's always going to be a better idea. The most important thing is just keep moving and evangelizing and going. That is the way forward.
What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
Um, Delegation. I mean, the truth of the matter is, I think that we've become really terrible at delegating. So much so that we need to look for hacks on time.
Mm,
And the real magic is not by finding a way to cram more into your day, is to actually lay off more. Um, I think we all want to be so productive, but the reality is only a very few set of people have the discipline to do that. What we can do is build teams and delegate work away so that you're not mired and trapped in sort of a 24-hour cycle. You can double your capacity by engaging one human being. And the problem has been that you've always felt like you had to give away equity or it cost too much. And that's just not the case anymore. Whether it be using AI with that type of person, with sort of an offshore talent, I mean, that really multiplies your effort. So I think a lot more is being accomplished today because of that. Um, but uh, yeah, I think that would be the number one productivity hack.
yeah. Yeah.
Hire offshore talent. Anything, anything is better than nothing.
Delegation. Yeah. Yeah.
Delegation. That is it.
What's a new or a crazy business idea you would love to pursue if you had time?
Um, there's, I think, well, first of all, I have an investment company and, um, and I think the crazy idea isn't so crazy, which is to buy an existing business and fix it. Um, there's a lot of change happening right now, and the prices of buying existing and transforming it is much more safe and from a risk reward profile, um, a better idea for people than to simply go naked um, on a big idea, sell off a big chunk of the equity in hopes that it's going to work out. We tend to evangelize the winners in these games, but the cutting room floor of all the failures is extraordinary. And I think we can all win a bit more and be in a better position to negotiate that great big idea with infrastructure and staff and income from a business you bought through an SBA loan or what have you. Um, what is it? Entrepreneurship through acquisition, I think they call it. I think that's a better play. I think it makes more sense. So it's not really a big idea, but it's a much better idea than simply going naked on an AI wrapper or something like
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Last but not least, what's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
that. Most people don't know that I play the cello and that I'm the board chair of a conservatory. And and the interesting thing about the cello and playing music is that even later in life, I started playing the cello 7 years ago, and I'm semi-competent as a sort of at an intermediate level. Um, Having a good guide, of course, is important. This is true of everything. That's certainly true of learning an instrument. Um, but the satisfaction one can get out of something that's kind of unrelated to every other thing they're working on is a great place to de-stress because your day can absolutely stink. You could be failing in many different ways, and yet you could still come home, pick up the instrument, and succeed just by showing up, right? And I think entrepreneurs need that because there are so many obstacles and there is so much risk. And to be able to retreat, even just for a short period of time, um, is I think a wonderful. It's a wonderful way to grow because at the end of it, um, it's something that you could take with you. It's a transferable skill and that you can enjoy as an entrepreneur of company A or B or C or wherever you are, you find yourself in that journey. Um, then that builds self identity too. I think it probably mentally is an incredible exercise as well. But it's never too late to learn an instrument. Like never too late.
Yeah, yeah. This year on my birthday, I got a small what you call it? It's a guitar, but it's not. It's very small, like this.
Well, not a mandolin, but yeah. Let's see.
Forgot his
That's
name.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your thing. You know, actually, this is not unusual. Mm, What is it called? Uh, Gosh, we actually do this in group settings at the conservatory. It's a tiny one, right? Tiny little guitar. Yeah. Have you played it at all? Do you take lessons? You don't do because
No,
it's small. Do you
I'm
feel
just
like it's yeah
yeah, yeah. No, no. I'm just trying to like ukulele. That's what it's called.
ukulele? Of
Yeah,
course,
yeah.
yes,
There you go.
yes,
Um,
ukulele. There you go.
I was trying to do the strumming, and then my fingers started hurting. But then I just do it every now and then whenever I get the time. But yeah, I get
Yeah,
what you're saying. Yeah,
yeah. That's the sort of yeah. Once you get you're going to develop calluses on your fingers, and eventually it'll be like nothing. And
yeah,
I think, you know, what is going to be remarkable is when you can put together a whole song and for some friends, and they'll think, "Wow, that's really amazing." Now,
mm,
because but the key, just like any business, into playing an instrument is just to get started. You know, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just gotta put one step in front of the other.
yeah. Indeed, indeed. Well, Chris, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your wisdom. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do it?
Best way to get in touch with me is on LinkedIn. Um, Chris Nolte on LinkedIn. Or you can find us at hirekayana.com, which is our website. Um, we I get involved in many of the different engagements that come through the door there, and it's it's a wonderful opportunity to support entrepreneurs and owners and investors, operators, um, uh, in a very scalable way because I can kind of provide free consulting and then give them a person and or a team that can then execute the strategy. And so that's a great way to get to know someone. Absolutely.
Indeed, indeed, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your inspiring journey. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on Founders
Ash.
Podcast.
My pleasure, Ash. Thank you so much for having me.